Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
Oh, no, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. This is Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. On the show tonight, protests erupt in Turkey after a satirical magazine is alleged to have published cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad. We'll be asking if anyone should be allowed to publish cartoons of the Islamic prophet in a second. I'll be joined by a police officer who's been cancelled for defending his colleagues. Richard Cook will be joining me in the studio to share his incredible story. Angela Rayner's new employment bill could be boom time for the UK's hard-working diversity officers. I'll be joined by Lord Toby Young to discuss if your office will succumb to the new banter police. And I'll be joined by Kate Harris from the LGB Alliance, who has some jaw-dropping revelations about the safeguarding failures at one of the country's biggest pride organisations. As is there a larger problem that needs to be looked at? And we've got some comedians answering some cultural conundrums from our live studio audience. But first, the news with Lewis Mackenzie.
Good evening. It's just after 7 o'clock. Here are your latest GB News headlines. The government says spending decisions have been made harder by the recent U-turn on welfare changes. This comes as the Chancellor says it's impossible for her to rule out tax rises in the autumn budget. Earlier today, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson was asked by Camilla Tominey if she could confirm the government's position.
When it comes to future decisions in the budget, those are matters for the Chancellor. It is important that the numbers add up, that we adhere to our fiscal rules, and we've got a clear plan for making sure the country continues to see economic growth.
But it sounds like you're not ruling out tax rises.
Well, these are not decisions for me as Education Secretary. They're matters for the Chancellor. This will all be taken together in the budget. But what is critical, and what we've always been clear about, is that getting economic growth is absolutely essential, because if we grow our economy, we're in a much stronger position where it comes to our ability to invest.
The Conservative Party say they want to ban foreigners from claiming key disability benefits to reduce the cost of Britain's welfare bill. Badenoch's party is calling on the Prime Minister to restrict personal independence payments and sickness top-ups to universal credit to UK citizens only. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says this sets a clear dividing line between the Tories, Labour and Reform.
Government should come forward with a discussion document to look at this whole area, because we do believe that British citizenship should mean something. And when it comes to welfare, we know that the costs are ever spiralling upwards, and we need to get that under control. And that's a big dividing line between ourselves and Labour, and indeed between ourselves and Reform, who want to spend more, for example, by removing the two-child benefit cap. So we believe there should be a serious discussion about this in terms of arresting the size of the welfare bill.
The ship that was attacked in the Red Sea earlier today off the coast of Yemen is now taking on water as the crew prepare to abandon the vessel, according to the UK Maritime Trade Operations. The UK MTO says a vessel was engaged by multiple small vessels which have opened fire with small arms and self-propelled grenades 51 nautical miles southwest of Yemen's coast. Armed security teams have returned fire. The situation is ongoing, and of course we'll bring you the very latest here on GB News. The death toll has risen to at least 70 people, including 21 children in the US state of Texas, after heavy rain caused flash flooding. The Guadalupe River burst its banks at around 4 a.m. local time on Friday, with as much as 10 inches of heavy rain falling in just a few hours overnight in the central Kerr County. President Trump has signed a major disaster declaration for the state, saying, "God bless the families and God bless the state of Texas." Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis McKenzie. More from me in an hour's time.
Cast our gaze across the spectrum of culture, current affairs and politics, doing our best to bring about a common sense to where things have become a little bit senseless. We've got a jam-packed show for you this week, including Lord Toby Young and LGB Alliance co-founder Kate Harris. But we're going to kick things off with the not much reported but important story from Turkey and ask what it could mean for the UK. Right now, journalists at Le Monde magazine in Turkey are fearing for their life. Their crime, it has been alleged that they published a cartoon depicting the Prophet Muhammad. Police in Turkey fired rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse angry mobs who have been calling for the arrest of the magazine's editor, claiming the magazine publicly insulted religious values. Whether or not it should be possible to or permissible to draw the Prophet Muhammad is one of the most controversial debates you can have around the issue of free speech. So we're going to have it right now. Joining me to discuss this story is political commentator and broadcaster Fahmir Mohammed and Mustafa Wasi, the chairman of Pitt Hall House. Welcome, both of you, to the show. Thank you so much for having me. Let's start. First of all, let's just expand the story a bit. My understanding is, well, they're now claiming that it wasn't the Prophet Muhammad, but even if it wasn't like a satirical cartoon in the sense of being insulting, right? It was to actually denote peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, my understanding of the situation in Turkey is largely that it was an effort to show reconciliation between Iran and Israel after the recent series of mutual bombings that took place in the last couple of weeks. And so while the cartoon itself might not have been ill-intended, it is nevertheless the case that the population seemed to be incredibly sensitive to the issue and then took to the streets. But that said, I think it's important for us to recognize that while it's important for us to look at various nations and how they undertake cultural policy on various fronts, we needn't necessarily condescend them or look down on them or necessarily even idolize them. What we need to do instead is to recognize the realities that we face on the ground here at home in Britain, focus here at home in Britain, and then find out what the most appropriate course of action is as far as free speech policy and the future of liberalism is concerned here in Britain.
Fair enough. Although I would point out that Turkey's a member of NATO and they're seeking, of course, to join the EU. But Fahmir, my understanding of Islam, of course, it's a broad, I won't say church, but the point is that it's not every Muslim thinks it's prohibited to draw Muhammad, right?
There are certain sects that will actually draw certain figures of Islam, but again, it would be probably where the face will be full of light, and again, it won't be incitement or mockery. And majority of Muslims don't believe in actually drawing any sort of figure, and it is considered close to idolatry, which is also close in the Christian faith. And
Judaism.
And Judaism, exactly. So I think the issue here that we need to understand is that society has already set a limit on what free speech is in certain communities. When it comes to, there was an incident where the actual Israeli leaders were drawn using Palestinian blood on the wall. Jews completely, demanded an apology.
That's because that's blood libel. That's a racist cartoon.
Exactly.
That's very different from just drawing a... I mean, is there... If someone just drew, like, a really handsome picture of the Prophet Muhammad, would you have an issue? If he's just looking there and he's all...
Well, it's never done like that. It's always done with some sort of mockery and
but in this case, it wasn't a mockery. It was
I understand, but again,
peace.
majority of Muslims do not see it in that way. And this was also telling a story which probably wasn't clear to many people. And they probably found it in a way where they probably felt that this kind of thing should not have been done because it was actually depicting the actual prophet. So I think when it comes to free speech and when it comes to religious protection of certain people, it is in line, for example, in the UK, to actually have British values where there's tolerance and respect, mutual respect, to create peace and cohesion.
Absolutely, but that's very different from not having breaking the law.
I agree. I think that while it's important for us to culturally encourage respect and dignity and to maintain and wield the freedoms that so many people have died throughout history to afford us, that we wield them with a certain degree of responsibility. Nevertheless, I do think that it's probably a massive state overreach to have the government start getting involved in what people can say and cannot think. It's a very short step from this towards political censorship and even cracking down on religious liberties that I think so many people here are keen to defend. And for that reason, I think that blasphemy laws, when tried in various other nations as well, have largely, far from increasing or stoking a sense of community and respect, have only heightened communal tensions. You know, respect is not something that can be mandated, not something that can be shoved down at people's throats. It's something that largely has to be earned and something that largely has to be charitably endowed. This is all stuff that I believe should fall within the remit of softer culture and far away from the sort of heavy-handed cudgel of the government.
Well, that's the government, but say an individual here, I don't have the same belief system that you do. If I wanted to draw a picture, a non-offensive picture of the Prophet Muhammad, what do you think could, because that would be enough, arguably, to lead to violence? You think that violence is in any way acceptable?
Violence is never acceptable. I think we should have, debate and sort of, proper sort of conversations about this.
Would you personally be furious? How would you feel if I drew a picture?
I would want to know what it was meaning and what it felt, and if I felt that it was actually not in line with the way in which I felt that it was offensive, or the fact that it was mockery and doing something that would be incitement, then yeah, I would write.
So it's the mockery that's the issue, rather than actually just drawing an image.
Absolutely, it's always been the case. Look, in society, when we are in business, we do not always say that what we have to do has to be legal or not. There's also a sense of us knowing there's a code of conduct, whether it's in business or whether it's in schools. We teach our children in a particular way to be respectful, to teach. And now in an adult world, we're saying, yeah, it's fine, burn the Quran, speak how you want. And that does not in line with the way in which the British society works.
I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. I don't think anyone's going out and say, burn the Quran.
Well, they're saying it's legal.
Well, they're saying that we have the right to, because we don't have blasphemy laws in this country. You mentioned schools. When someone showed the Charlie Hebdo cartoon...
Which was against curriculum as well.
Well, the point, he did warn and he did give people the opportunity to go out. But the point was, he is showing... His purpose was arguably not to insult Islam, but to be able to talk about our society as a liberal democracy, right? Yep. Now he's, of course, hiding from death threats. Yeah,
this is incredibly shameful, and none of this should be tolerated at all. Violence of any form. This goes from the most egregious case of the Charlie Hebdo attacks in 2015, all the way through to mob intimidation of teachers who are trying to pursue academic discussion of various kinds, is not tolerable at all. So, despite the general caveat that while we need to wield our responsibilities, prudently, it should also not be the case that people fear for their lives, when discussing things or thinking. In order to be able to think, you need to be able to risk offending. And in this case, arguably, he wasn't even attempting to risk offending. So I think at no point should people have a skin so thin or a trigger so lightly triggered that they blow up every time somebody says something that might risk offending them, even if this was not even the intention. Yeah. I think at no point can violence be tolerated.
So people calling for the death of these people who worked for this magazine, I don't want to call out on you to condemn them, but can you see that is a concern, that there's a mob of hundreds calling for these people's death? I
always say we have to follow the law of the land. Yes, we can protest and it should be peaceful, and no one should be intimidated by the fact that they've done something in a way to offend someone or even hurt someone, that they should be at risk in this sense. Nobody, even a Muslim, should really be doing that. That's something that is definitely, really, really strong on my stance as well. But the thing is, we always pick on the fact that there's one particular group, which is Muslim, that has an issue where they have to protect themselves from certain things that they file sacred.
What do you mean by protecting themselves, though? Are we talking about just by debating? Because Judaism has a very similar law. If someone wanted to draw a picture of Moses, which technically is against rabbinical law, and even a horrible picture of Moses,
yes,
I wouldn't like it. but I would still say that person has the right to do so.
Having the right to do so, no one's judging that. But, you know, religious...
But there are people who seem to be saying that there is a problem with the right to do so.
I get that. But, you know what, sacred religious figures has been protected by Jews and Christians alike, and they've also had outrage on this, but we do not report on that. They've had apologies, they've had bannings, even when it came to things like the opera of, you know, mockery of Jesus Christ and things like that.
But we haven't had murders, and that's the difference.
I get that too, but that again is against. We're not talking about that. That we do not accept at all. But for us to also have the right to speak against it, that is again a certain
Of course,
thing.
the point is people have the right to be offended. People have the right to stand up and say that's upsetting.
Absolutely.
I get that. Of course, the problem is when it crosses over to violence. Now, I don't want to single out Islam here, but the issue is that there's a problem where instead of debate, for some people, it goes to violence, and then the use of, regardless of the law of the land...
Well, you know, there's so much anti-Muslim hate right now. We don't want to say Islamophobia because people think it doesn't really exist. So, you know,
anti-Muslim hate is real, yes,
that is
absolutely
real, and it's on the rise. So people do feel defensive, and they do feel that they're being picked on. And most of the time, it is only the rhetoric that is, and the propaganda against Muslims. Whatever they do wrong, yet it could be in every other society. So I guess, you know, divisions are fueled because of that, because they are already a marginalised group, looked upon with misrepresentation and misunderstanding of what the core beliefs and values and living Britons that are law-abiding citizens actually adhere to. That's the issue. So when something like this happens, unfortunately, we cannot control everyone, but tensions kind of rise because they feel they have to stand up, they feel they have to speak, they feel that they are again dehumanised and mocked.
I can understand that, but there are also people who are standing up to what they see as an insult to their religious beliefs.
And they get the exact same, you know, protests and even whatever, but it's just never highlighted in media.
Well, when we
see that outside
but it's also
media.
between different parts of Islam, where you had the film come out a couple of years ago. It was banned in the... Basically, it was pulled in a cinema because a certain group of Muslims said that even to depict the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, just a tiny part of her face, was enough to mean hundreds of men protesting in a car park and threatening intimidation.
Yeah, I think mob intimidation absolutely should be shut down. I think the people need to be...
But the police didn't, is my point.
I agree.
The cinema shut it down by pulling the film.
I agree. And in a sense, it does Muslims no favours to engage in activity that could be construed as intimidation or violence, simply because it further seeks to entrench the idea that they are an alienated subgroup within society. Again, nevertheless, I still think that this is broadly a minor subcommunity of Islamists, all of whom should be tackled with the full force of the law very aggressively. That peace must be maintained, that debate should be encouraged, and that while... but that the whole time we remain cognizant of the idea that you know, while I may disapprove of what you say, I should defend to the death your right to be able to say it. But at the same time, recognize that while free speech means risking the right to offend, you know, civilization often means having the wisdom to refrain. You know, and that these things often need to live within the context of culture and far away from the heavy-handedness of state overreach.
Exactly. Well, but then would it be state overreach?
No. So to enforce law and order, this is absolutely within the remit of the state. What is not within the remit of the state is what happens inside your head, what happens inside your house, what happens inside the church, what happens inside the mosque. All of these things, you know. I think that as far as maintaining the peace is concerned, I think it's incredibly important that the state does get involved strongly and decisively. And I think a failure to do so only further seeks to worsen communal tensions, right? So, for example, it cannot possibly be the case that the state's refusal to get involved in Rotherham or its sluggishness to conduct a report or to figure out what happened, it cannot possibly be the case that their sensitivity to cultural, to culture did not, in fact, make the situation a lot worse, because everybody knew what was going on.
What I really don't like right now is the fact that when we talk about Muslim, we kind of like brush them all under the same carpet. Even if there was protests, there's always a minority that will stand out. But again, it's looked upon like as if it's everyone, OK? And at the same time, even just like with maybe Southport, when they were rioting, and then, you know, maybe the far right went and overtook and hijacked what was really concerns, genuine concerns. It's the same understanding when it comes to Muslims. And yes, there are different sects, there are different, you know, cultures within Islam, and there are different even sort of interpretations. And people look at it as all as one. So when something comes out, everybody is attacked and everyone has to condemn and everyone has to stand up. People have condemned the grooming gangs. 200 mosques at the time did, imams did, scholars did, and up till now, people are still against that. Just like with everything else, we do not promote violence, rape, gangs, or anything. We, in our Sharia laws, or anything like that, we would actually, have much severe death penalty for things like that.
Yeah, but there are other people who would interpret it and say what was certain interpretations of it which allowed, in this case, white young girls to
no, that's completely
I'm not saying
yes,
but I'm saying that there is an argument that there are parts of it.
Majority of people do not sort of like align to those kind of beliefs of extremism, of anything that is against women or anything like that. We had rights for women before feminism came in, and unfortunately, yes, there are cultures and there are certain sort of religious maybe scholars or whatever it may be that will actually manipulate. But it doesn't just happen in Islam; it happens in the Judaism. It happens everywhere.
It does,
but again, it's always highlighted. No. If you put a spotlight all the time on one particular group, it's always going to seem like they're the ones that's the problem.
Well, no, but the problem is...
That's how it is.
It's more important to stay away from the intricacies of theology and focus on what can be done for Britain here and now, right? What the conversation needs to be around what is culturally acceptable in the country, how we ought to respect our freedoms, which freedoms to respect.
Well, look around. There's so many Muslims that are actually working, living, law-abiding. You go any shops, any sort of professional industry.
Of course there are. But the question, how do we as a society deal with the Muslims or anybody who would...
The criminal justice system, the police, that's what it is.
I agree with you. That's the idea. It's meant to work that way, but we're not seeing that when there's this argument that... Do you think that there is this... People claim that, that there's, like, two-tier justice?
Absolutely not, because we've just seen, an 85-year-old, probably like a priest that was there for pro-Palestine. That's not on one side.
No, but we also saw someone burning the Quran.
Survivors who are actually pro-Palestinian, who are also
when we're seeing people arrested for burning the Quran, instead of being arrested for burning the Bible.
Well, no, it's a case by case. Right? There's laws, right? If it's an incitement, if it's in a public place, you cannot also bring these cases and make it like as if that it's absolutely wrong what the judge has actually deemed. You have to understand how the law works, and there are certain things that does cross the line. Everywhere there is a line, and that's what we need to understand.
So for you, is the line drawing a picture of Mohammed? Is that drawing the line?
I would say it depends on intent, it depends on context. But, I would not say
I deliberately went out of my way to draw this terrible picture of Mohammed. Do you think I should be arrested for it?
I think you should be questioned as to what was it that you were doing, where did you put that in?
I can be questioned, that's free speech, but questioned by our state? Do you think that that is where we should be?
Well, it depends if it actually caused anything. If it didn't cause an outrage, if it didn't, had some sort of
but then the onus goes on the people who are then offended. And that's the problem.
But that's how it works. You've got people that can complain on this channel, and it is the onus on the people complaining on the channel.
But we talked about the Quran being burnt. You had two random men who were offended because they're Muslims. Then the blame went back onto the person blaming the Quran. If I drew a picture of Mohammed out in the street and people started stabbing me, which is what happened there, then by your logic, you're saying, well, if they get offended, then I should go to jail for it.
That is criminal, right? If you're going to attack someone, I do not condone that.
But I'm saying, but you are condoning the person himself being...
No, because the laws in this country is a fact that, the way in which, if you are going to go out publicly and incitement and introduce hate, then that is also something that's not me. That is not according to me. That is the law of the UK, the legislation and the regulation of the UK.
That's exactly why we're talking about this.
I think
it's not me.
I think is it provocative?
It's you. No, I'm joking.
I think is it provocative? Yes. Will it piss people off? Yes. Should it be legal? Absolutely not. I think that I can't personally say that I like the idea of blasphemy, but at the same time, given that I think that that it upsets a lot of people and only worsens communal tensions. But at the same time, do I like the idea of the state getting involved and starting to mandate respect?
If it's going to cause hate and if it's meant to be peace, then yes. And I'm not just offended by the Prophet. It's Moses, it's Jesus, it's everyone.
Yeah, so
they all do that.
Frankly, who cares if you're offended? Like that.
I'm talking about.
No, I know. But
I'm just saying generally. When you're asking me personally, yes, it's an offence. Of course, I'm not going to go out. I'm going to ask you if it's the crowds. Then that's a different story. And of course,
I think it'll only further entrench the idea that Muslims are a protected group that are not equal under the law.
It's not just Muslims. There are Jews and every Christianity. I just sent out.
We're going to go to a break now.
Don't just say it's Muslims.
We're going to be very safe in the break. We're going to play charades. That way, we're going to be totally fine. Anyway, that was political commentator, broadcaster Fahmi Mohammed and chairman of Pickle House, Mustafa Wasi. Thank you so much for joining us for that very lovely debate. Next on Free Speech Nation, my lovely studio audience will be asking me and my comedian panel some searing questions. Don't go anywhere. See you in 2 minutes. That's fine. There we go. I think we solved it.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. My comedian guests this evening are Miriam Elia and Steve N. Allen. Yay! How you guys doing? All right?
Yeah, good.
You good? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Josh.
Yeah, you too. And you nice. Yeah. Look, we're going to get straight to some questions from our audience. Our first question is from Chris G.
Hello. So, is it important that your cat thinks that there are only two sexes?
Yes. So I like your mic technique there, Chris. Which was very dignified. Yes. So is it important that you think that your cat only has two sexes? So a gender-critical lawyer was banned by a vet because of a belief that there are only two biological sexes. A judge has said, Alison Bailey, a retired criminal defence barrister and co-founder of the LGBT Alliance, sued Palmerston Veterinary Group Surgery in Walthamstow, North East London, after she was expelled from their practice. The practice claimed she was thrown out for being rude to staff, but the judge rejected the argument, saying she had faced unlawful discrimination because of her beliefs. Are you familiar with this case, Steve? I mean, Alison Bailey's a bit of a hero for the gender-critical movement. Yeah. She was one of the lawyers and barristers taking her work to court. but this has sort of affected her private life as well.
And I'm a cat owner, so a bit of a hero to me.
OK.
My 2 cats, both girls. Sorry, controversial. And
we don't say girls, we say women.
Well, I've asked the cats.
Biological cat females.
I've tried to ask the cats what they identify as.
Yeah.
And they kind of looked at me weirdly, like, put the food down and move on, you big fat human. Weird, isn't it? Strange. I don't know how that topic came up. When I take my cats to the vet, we don't really get into concepts of gender criticism or not. I don't. It's like, how have the cats been? I don't go, before we get into that, I just want to, would you all check how many sexes are there? It didn't come up as a little question. How did they even get into it?
I know, this is it. Well, Miriam, what do you reckon to this?
I think they should start a course in university for cats.
OK.
Yeah, where they can explore their gender.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
in cat.
Yes, in cat, yeah.
They could have chickens and cats and dogs and kind of just, you know, get the ideology into them.
Yeah, well, exactly, that's it. And then we're going to see some non-binary cats.
See some open-minded cats.
Yeah, fair enough. OK, let's see how that works out. Our next question... Oh, wait a minute, I should say a spokesman, interesting, for Linnaeus, which owns Palmerston Veterinary Group, said, our focus is on providing the best possible care for pets in a welcome environment and supporting our teams. Our next question is from Sean.
Well, the questions are getting any better than they are now, but this one is about when will white women stop touching the bottoms of disabled Indian boys in swimming pools?
Good question. Good question.
Have you been looking at my internet history?
No.
So it's the German council has been criticised for sexual harassment poster that depicts a white woman groping a black boy with a prosthetic leg. The poster was put up in an outdoor swimming pool in the western town of Burren with the caption, "Stop grabbing is forbidden." So, Miriam, are you a scary person to go swimming with? Is this going to stop all that bum grabbing in Germany?
Well, I just better stop it, really. I just got to pack it in.
Yeah.
If I see a disabled
Indian boy,
Asian boy, I just can't help it. It's in my DNA.
Straight in there. So, I mean, this is on the back of a very serious incident, or many serious incidents, where in the pool a group of girls were attacked by a group of young men from abroad. And this was the poster campaign, and they just flipped it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, it's white women are the problem.
I've been enjoying this picture so much. It's the funniest thing I've seen in ages. Because, in some ways, it's the end of the story of, well, you've got to be represented in all media. For decades now, women have wanted to be represented anywhere. Yeah. Since 2020, you can't have a superhero who's not a woman. She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, what's the...
All that.
the one with the Archer one, the new version of Hawkeye. Basically, they did make Daredevil, but he's blind. That's a different box, isn't it? So I think what's happened here is it's finally you've been represented in the sex offender community. Congratulations. You're seeing yourself... Look, swimming is a dodgy area. There's one of them, it's called breaststroke. So the whole thing is a bit gropey, but I think it was always going to happen. OK, so our next question is from Chris S.
Josh,
hey, mate.
Would banning dresses meaning banning the burqa?
Yeah, so would banning dresses, I guess, mean banning the burqa, technically? I don't know. A parent has hit out at a decision by an educational trust to ban skirts in its new school uniform policy. Northern Education Trust, which operates 6 secondary schools in Teesside, has had to write to parents outlining the changes to its school uniform policy, which will come into effect from September 2026. The new policy bans skirts from being worn and says all students are being expected to wear tailored school trousers. What do you think?
I've got the solution to that.
What is the solution?
You put the burqa on, but it just ends in trousers.
Ooh, hello. That is a really... Burqa trousers. There's no reason why, technically, it wouldn't fulfil the burqa laws.
It just is flowing, loose, but still...
Yeah, but...
separated.
In fact, you could argue that would be better in terms of... Because with a burqa, a gust of wind could come by or something. This way, there's no chance.
I'm seeing it more, you know, kind of like quite 70s, like, you know...
Yeah, like
almost like flared at the bottom, but then obviously black.
I don't want to say hazmat, but you're heading in that direction, aren't you? It's one of those...
kind of hazmat, somewhere between burqa and hazmat.
Now, Steve, we have to watch this question a little bit. We don't want to be too pro... teenage girls wearing skirts in schools.
Yep.
Terrible.
I don't know why that's where your mind went. This was not where I thought this story was.
I'm always aware of the dangers, got Ofcom. Right. But this, there is a question of freedom here. It's interesting how the language that was used by one of the parents was that their daughter now couldn't promote her gender identity, which was quite a way of flipping it on its head.
I file this story under, it's so stupid, but I still don't really care. It's that level of, like, so you wear trousers, great. Because at least it'll do one thing. It'll stop the same story that comes around every year. A heat wave happens, some school won't let the boys wear anything other than the trousers, so they turn up in skirts, and that's in the tabloids. So at least that'll get rid of that. I mean, I think they're trying to argue that it saves money because there are fewer items of the uniform to put together. But surely the most low-maintenance item, and I don't wear a skirt very often, but surely skirts are fairly low maintenance, aren't they? Because I remember being a kid, you fall over it, you go through the knee of the trousers because you're grazing your knees all the time.
No, but you've also got to buy tights, I guess.
Really? You know more about this than I do.
This is just what I've heard.
OK. Well, I'd say go tireless. Just draw on the seam like they did in the war.
But I mean, you're a woman.
Yeah.
We're allowed to say that word nowadays, aren't we?
last time I checked.
Thrown out
I was born.
Do you think this would have been a big deal if you were at school, what you were told to wear?
What, wearing a burqa?
No, wearing skirts.
I had to wear skirts.
So you had to wear a skirt?
Yeah,
What do you think about girls now being told you cannot wear a skirt?
That's a bit extreme. But then again, telling me I had to wear a skirt was a bit extreme. Surely you should be able to choose.
Yeah, OK, fair enough. I like this. This is a crazy idea, choosing.
Choosing.
Yeah, right. Next on Free Speech Nation, we're joined by a police officer who has been cancelled for standing up for his colleagues. It's an extraordinary story. You don't want to miss it. See you in 2 minutes.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The fresh northwesterly winds that are currently across the UK are also beginning to spread into other areas of Western Europe and helping to ease the heat wave that they've had here recently. Still, though, there are plenty of heavy showers and thunderstorms here, particularly across parts of Iberia, the Alps and towards the Balkans. The heat, though, is getting squeezed towards eastern areas of continental Europe, and so here temperatures are still going to be notably above average as we head over the next few days, but with some sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Next week promises more sunshine and fewer showers. We've had some quite heavy ones around during today. They will tend to be easing off as we head throughout this evening and overnight, but some further spells of rain are very likely for parts of Wales and England as we do head into the early hours of Monday morning. Some clearer spells developing for areas further towards the north, and that could lead to a relatively fresh night. Temperatures in towns and cities around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius, but single figures is likely in some rural areas. Do watch out for a few of those lingering heavy showers just first thing on Monday morning, particularly across the far southeast of England, and we could also see a few of them drifting in for North Wales, parts of Merseyside and Cheshire as well. But generally the theme is that things will be turning drier. Quite a lot of sunshine around for Northern Ireland and Scotland to kick off Monday morning. A fairly pleasant start here, still with a brisk breeze in place, so a fresh morning nonetheless, but that sunshine should become a bit more prevalent across many areas as we do move throughout the day. Those showers easing off, and there will be a lot of dry, fine weather around for many of us. Temperatures are expected to be around average for the time of year. We'll likely see mid to high teens across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, where we'll be closer towards 23 degrees Celsius across the far south of England. But that breeze that is in place may just make it feel a touch cooler. As we move into Tuesday, high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic, but there are still a few fronts just pushing their way into the far northwest of Scotland. So we could see cloud building for Northern Ireland and the Outer Hebrides with a few spots of rain later on in the day. A few showers also just skirting the far east of England, but generally there will be a lot of sunshine to be had, and generally with lighter winds as well, it should be feeling pretty pleasant. That sunshine looks to become increasingly widespread as we head throughout the week, and those temperatures are set to climb close towards 30 degrees Celsius for some of us. Bye-bye.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, It happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. The head of West Midlands Police Federation is taking legal action after he was removed from office for standing up for his fellow officers and dismissing claims that racism is widespread amongst his colleagues. Rich Cook was elected to his position but has now been suspended by the Federation and banned from standing for re-election following comments made on X. To explain what happened to him and what steps he's taking next is Richard Cook himself. Richard, welcome to Free Speech Nation.
Hi, Josh.
I read about the story this week. My understanding is, sort of to explain it, is that there were comments made because of some previous cases involving police officers and former police officers, which you then commented on. Can we just start from...
Yes, there was a rash of headlines in some parts of the media, notably Channel 4, BBC, claiming that there was a widespread culture of racism and misogyny in the ranks of West Midlands Police, that we had a sort of a gang culture was another comment that was made. And I, as the elected representative of West Midlands rank and file officers at the time, I wasn't prepared to have that because that is patently untrue. It's not a description I recognise of my colleagues who were going out every day, working hard, being very brave on behalf of members of the public. And they don't deserve those sort of labels. And that's never to say that there aren't instances of misconduct that go on. But I know for a fact that those individuals are rooted out and dealt with very severely. You know, so...
It wasn't one of the other things that was said that the police were doing nothing about it?
Yes, and I said that was nonsense, you know, because, as I've just alluded, we have taken action in West Midlands Police over a number of years now to root out misogynist individuals, racist individuals. They are dealt with, they are ejected from the force. You know, we don't have any truck with those sorts of things. When they're found out, they're dealt with.
Fair enough. And so you made these comments, you did your job of representing the officers who work for the service. And what happened next then?
Well, about a week later, I found myself suspended from my role as the elected spokesperson for West Midlands officers. I was suspended by the Police Federation of England and Wales, PFEW. They accused me of victim blaming, dismissing discrimination, and I went through a process which ended in a hearing in March and a subsequent appeal, but the upshot of which is I was banned from standing for elections. I was coming to my third election. I'd been elected successfully twice in contested elections. I would have been elected a third time, I believe, and I was gearing up to stand possibly in national elections. But I do think that may be one of the reasons why that there is a political motivation, that the types of things I've espoused in the past aren't things that the Federation I command want to be heard. But that is wrong in itself, because the Police Federation, I don't know if viewers know, has got a monopoly on police officers. We're forced to join it effectively because, there's
no union, right?
There's no union. Unions are banned with police officers. But we need protection because every day officers are in jeopardy. They get complaints and they need people to represent them, like Federation reps, but they also need the legal cover. So they're effectively forced to join that. And what we need is a democratic organisation. And in recent years, we've been taken over by a chief executive officer who's a non-police officer, a civilian, who's never done a day on the streets in a uniform.
The way you said civilian was a little bit triggering.
And I
to be honest, you spat it out, civilian.
Yeah, and I don't mean to offend any, obviously, people who are not. But, But I just think, as a police federation, we ought to be led by a democratically elected police officer. And the fact is, at the moment, we're not.
So, because of course there's a huge difference between saying that there's widespread or implying that everybody is racist who works for the police and pointing out that it exists, but it is also being dealt with. So the lack of nuance here is ridiculous. And then that's come down to you. So so now you're suing them or you're fighting back against this?
So I'm trying to join my case with Rick Pryor, was a friend and colleague in the Metropolitan Force. Your viewers may recall, he said that officers were fearful of stop searching people due to the fear of being complained about and being called racist back in October of last year. So we think our cases are very similar, and we're taking them to a judicial review at the High Court, hopefully. But I think what's most important is that police have elected rank-and-file officers who feel able to speak out on their behalf.
Of course.
And the chilling effect that this will have on my former colleagues around the country, they won't feel able to speak out in the way that I did. You know, we've got to have my colleagues deserve those representatives that are going to speak out on all manner of issues as they see fit.
Yeah, even if it's something that people don't necessarily want to hear.
Yeah, and the way people could have expressed their views about me if they didn't like what I said was through the elections. But of course, I was barred from standing at the last minute in the elections. So my former members and my colleagues have had no chance to have their say on me and what I've done to represent them at all.
And anybody else, people replace you, but of course anyone else, other federations across the country, now will not feel able to stand up for
Absolutely. I think
either.
so. I think there's a climate of fear within the Police Federation amongst representatives.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that climate of fear is everywhere, but good luck with your case. Thank you very much for coming to tell us all about it. Richard Cook, ladies and gentlemen. A spokesman for the Police Federation of England and Wales has issued this statement in response. Richard Cook was removed from his role as chair of the West Midlands Federation branch following an extensive process which included an appeal. He was investigated following complaints from members about comments on social media which were judged by a panel of his peers to have been in breach of the Federation's standards. Our processes, which are set in statute, were followed rigorously and applied fairly at all times. Richard Cook remains a serving police officer with the West Midlands Police Force. Oh, I didn't know you were still officer. I didn't say anything about drugs in the break. OK, so next on Free Speech Nation, I am joined by Lord Young to discuss if you're getting a workplace visit from the banter police. Not Richard, though. See you in 2 minutes.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. In what is a fantastic news for all office nosy parkers up and down the country, new employment laws drawn up by Angela Rayner could pressure firms into hiring diversity officers whose job includes protecting staff from the content of overheard conversations. We're joined now by Mr. Free Speech himself, Lord Young, Director of Free Speech Union. Welcome.
Thanks, Josh.
You've talked about this before. This is a real problem. It seems to be continuing. It doesn't seem like the government's listening.
No, I don't think the government, without being forced to, are going to back down on the banter ban. They seem determined to get it through. I've got some amendments that I'm proposing in the Lords next week during the report stage. Hopefully, they'll attract enough support to be attached to the bill. It'll go back to the Commons, and they'll have an opportunity to think about it again. But what they'll probably do is just strip away the amendments and send it back to the Lords unchanged. So the banter ban, I think, is a real worry. It's a real assault on free speech. What it means is they're amending the Equality Act in the Employment Rights Bill to make employers liable for the harassment of their employees, not the sexual harassment of their employees. They're already liable for that. The non-sexual harassment of their employees by third parties, i.e. customers, members of the public.
When we're talking about harassment, we're not even talking sexual, we're talking about ideas, words.
We're talking about unwelcome opinions, expostulations, banter that employees find offensive or upsetting by virtue of their protected characteristics, the colour of their skin, their sexual orientation, their religion. It's extraordinary to think that employers in beleaguered sectors like the hospitality sector, are going to have to deal with this whole new layer of red tape. If they don't take all reasonable steps, this is what it says in the banter ban clause, if they don't take all reasonable steps to protect their employees from overhearing conversations between members of the public, customers, in pubs, in restaurants, in football stadiums, if they don't take all reasonable steps to protect their employees from hearing these unwelcome things, their employees can take them to the Employment Tribunal and sue them for tens of thousands of pounds.
And what about in offices then as well? Well, that encourage people like... Because that was what the Daily Mail was pushing, this idea that there's going to be these diversity officers hired in offices because otherwise people might talk to each other.
I mean, there are already EDI officers employed in offices, particularly in the public sector, and their job is to protect employees from being harassed by other employees, which is already what the Equality Act says employers have to do. And I think what the Mail on Sunday means is that where a workplace is a pub or a restaurant or a sports stadium, employers will have to employ what we're calling banter bouncers, people whose job it is to make sure customers in those venues don't say anything, don't express any opinions, don't assume the gender of the people serving them in a way that they might find upsetting and could lead to a case being brought against their employer in the Employment Tribunal. don't forget, Josh, that the Employment Tribunal is completely overwhelmed at the moment. So one of the things this new clause will do will introduce a whole new swathe of cases which will block up the Employment Tribunal even more. I mean, we've got a case. This guy, Seba Porsaidi, fired from a housing association because he stood as a reform candidate. That's not going to be heard until 2027, because the backlog now is at least 2 years. And it's just going to be completely overwhelmed. And there was a stat today in the Sunday Times that since the budget was introduced, only a few months ago, the 69,000 or so people have lost their jobs in the hospitality sector. This is going to make it even worse. According to, the Campaign for Real Ale, pubs are closing at a rate of 37 a week. This is going to decimate the pub trade. I mean, this is the death knell for the good old British pub. This government doesn't know what it's doing. There isn't a single person in the government who's ever run a business. They don't care about the impact that measures like the banter ban will have on struggling businesses. They don't care about the additional legal burden they'll be placing on them, the additional risks of having a business in which your employees could sue you for not protecting them from overheard conversations between customers. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's going to destroy the hospitality sector.
Yeah, well, the other statistic I read in that article was that since 2021, the employment tribunals that involve banter has gone up 41%, and that was just a few years ago. So we've seen, every day we see some crazy outlet of where someone has said this and then they've been given a load of money. This is going to surely make it
It's going to make it 10 times worse, because when I've brought this up in the House of Lords, the government minister defending the banter ban has said, oh no, harassment doesn't include banter, overheard banter. You're making that up. This is confected outrage. But actually, we know from a succession of cases in the Employment Tribunal that if an employee overhears a conversation between two other employees, just overhears, not directed at them, that they find offensive or upsetting by virtue of their protected characteristics, they can sue their employer in the Employment Tribunal. So the Employment Tribunal has defined harassment as including overheard banter, and that won't change when it comes to overheard conversations, banter between members of the public.
This is not going anywhere. Good luck with your amendments to the bill this week.
Thank you.
It's insane how they won't just listen and put some limitations on this kind of language. Insane. Thank you very much. That's Lord Toby Young. See you guys.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Next week promises more sunshine and fewer showers. We've had some quite heavy ones around during today. They will tend to be easing off as we head throughout this evening and overnight, but some further spells of rain are very likely for parts of Wales and England as we do head into the early hours of Monday morning. Some clearer spells developing for areas further towards the north, and that could lead to a relatively fresh night. Temperatures in towns and cities around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius, but single figures is likely in some rural areas. Do watch out for a few of those lingering heavy showers just first thing on Monday morning, particularly across the far southeast of England, and we could also see a few of them drifting in for North Wales, parts of Merseyside and Cheshire as well. But generally the theme is that things will be turning drier. Quite a lot of sunshine around for Northern Ireland and Scotland to kick off Monday morning. A fairly pleasant start here, still with a brisk breeze in place, so a fresh morning nonetheless, but that sunshine should become a bit more prevalent across many areas as we do move throughout the day. Those showers easing off, and there will be a lot of dry, fine weather around for many of us. Temperatures are expected to be around average for the time of year. We'll likely see mid to high teens across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, where we'll be closer towards 23 degrees Celsius across the far south of England. But that breeze that is in place may just make it feel a touch cooler. As we move into Tuesday, high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic, but there are still a few fronts just pushing their way into the far northwest of Scotland. So we could see cloud building for Northern Ireland and the Outer Hebrides with a few spots of rain later on in the day. A few showers also just skirting the far east of England, but generally there will be a lot of sunshine to be had, and generally with lighter winds as well, it should be feeling pretty pleasant.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
There's plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, including Kate Harris from LGBT Alliance. But first, we're going to get a news update from Lewis Mackenzie.
Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. Here are your latest GB News headlines. The government says spending decisions have been made harder by the recent U-turn on welfare changes. This comes as the Chancellor says it's impossible for her to rule out tax rises in the autumn budget. Earlier today, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson was asked by Camilla Tominey if she could confirm the government's position.
When it comes to future decisions in the budget, those are matters for the Chancellor. It is important that the numbers add up, that we adhere to our fiscal rules, and we've got a clear plan for making sure the country continues to see economic growth.
But it sounds like you're not ruling out tax rises.
Well, these are not decisions for me as Education Secretary. They're matters for the Chancellor. This will all be taken together in the budget. But what is critical, and what we've always been clear about, is that getting economic growth is absolutely essential, because if we grow our economy, we're in a much stronger position where it comes to our ability to invest.
The Conservative Party say they want to ban foreigners from claiming key disability benefits to reduce the cost of Britain's welfare bill. Badenoch's party is calling on the Prime Minister to restrict personal independence payments and sickness top-ups to universal credit to UK citizens only. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says this sets a clear dividing line between the Tories, Labour and Reform.
The government should come forward with a discussion document to look at this whole area, because we do believe that British citizenship should mean something. And when it comes to welfare, we know that the costs are ever spiralling upwards, and we need to get that under control, and that's a big dividing line between ourselves and Labour, and indeed between ourselves and Reform, who want to spend more, for example, by removing the two-child benefit cap. So we believe there should be a serious discussion about this in terms of arresting the size of the welfare bill.
Now we have a breaking line coming from the Red Sea. The ship that was attacked in the Red Sea earlier today off the coast of Yemen is now taking on water. We don't know the situation of said ship, but we do know, and we have confirmation, that all of the crew have now abandoned the ship and are awaiting assistance. That's according to the UK Maritime Trade Operations. The UK MTO says a vessel was engaged by multiple small vessels which have opened fire with small arms and self-propelled grenades. Armed security teams have returned fire and the situation is ongoing. And the death toll has risen to at least 70 people, including 21 children in the US state of Texas, after heavy rain caused flash flooding. The Guadalupe River burst its banks at around 4 a.m. local time on Friday, with as much as 10 inches of heavy rain falling in just a few hours overnight in central Kerr County. President Trump has signed a major disaster declaration for the state, saying God bless the families and God bless Texas. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. We're going to get some more questions now from our audience. Our first question is from Chris.
Should charities be allowed to call for the murder of the Jews?
Should charities be allowed to call for the murder of Jews? So, yeah, it's an insane question, but then we live in an insane age. The charity regulator has banned a trustee of an Islamic foundation after he was accused of encouraging violence against Jews after the October 7th Hamas attack. Harun Abdur Rashid Holmes, a leading figure with Nottingham Islam Information Point, has been barred from acting as a charity trustee for 3 years. Woo! After delivering a sermon in which he stated that Muslims would kill Jews until they had hiding behind a rock there. Miriam!
What should we do?
3 whole years, he can't do it. That's a strong sentence, not being able to be part of a trust, not be a trustee for a charity for 3 years.
I'm going to have to hide behind a rock for 3 years.
Yeah, obviously so. This is slightly serious. This is a GB News story, came out...
This is terrible.
Yeah, this is terrible, because this sermon was... There's video evidence of it occurring. Then it was sent into the Charity Commission. It took them 20 months to investigate it. And they've come out and they basically kind of just done a warning for the charity, and they've banned this guy for 3 years. This is incitement to murder.
Yep, but seeing as I'm the only non-Jewish member on the panel, I guess for Ofcom balance, yeah, he should say that. Does that help with the balance?
Not really.
I mean,
no.
Does it depend on which charity? Because the question was which charity. I mean, if it's Scope, you'd let them say it a couple of times, wouldn't you? No, this is such.
We're such a soft target, aren't we?
Well, that's the point. Yeah, it's
we're easy because people can say whatever they like about us. They know we're not going to do anything.
Well, even in the article, it was saying part of the not really defence, but part of the information was, he wasn't a fully trained imam. Well, he's got the gist of the religion, though, hasn't he? He's got the main tick points.
I mean, of course, there is an irony here, is this charity was set up to debunk myths about Islam, it says. That's one of the purposes of it being set up. And by the way, this is one of only 300 examples that was sent in about different mosques across the country and Islamic charities across the country where this kind of rhetoric was used.
Well, this is, it's terrible. In a way. You can't... But look, you could go through any religion and find violent bits. I get that. It's not exclusive to one religion, but you can't preach that. You have to be able to when you're actively telling your congregation to go out and kill me,
I mean,
I don't want
in
that.
the story as well, he was saying that he was quoting something without context.
So what was the context?
Well, the context was he was quoting from some other book, right?
From a hadith.
Yeah. But I didn't mention that. So very much, you kind of got to mention your sources so it doesn't seem like you're the one saying it right there.
Well, the context is that this took place a week or 6 days after October 7th, where 1,200 Jews were murdered, 250 were kidnapped, and then you've got someone in this country who is standing up in front of other Muslims and preaching for the murder of Jews. And this person, has he been arrested?
No.
Is he a UK citizen?
No.
Should he be here? I mean,
no,
this is a real problem where our charity commission can't seem to do anything about it.
And the thing he was saying as well was the bit that he was quoting. I know I'm not finding it funny in the wrong way, but I just think it's such a bizarre thing to say, that saying that they will fight the Jews until one hides behind a tree and the tree will say that the Jew is... Like, even in this story, the tree's anti-Semitic. Do you know what I mean? That's the level that they're aiming for.
There's a theological problem there. They need to... That's not something I can solve on Free Speech Nation, is it? But
no, unfortunately not.
Trees love all religions, but they did play a role in the crucifixion, just saying, because of the wood. So maybe we do need to look into that.
You think it's a tree? You think this all comes down to the environment?
No one ever talks about the amount of wood that was used on that cross.
OK! Now we've offended Christians as well as Muslims and Jews. So Mr Holmes refused to provide a comment. We're doing our job. A spokesman for the NIIP apologised for the sermon, saying Mr Holmes is not a qualified imam and has not formally studied Islam. He was given the responsibility of the sermon at late notice and was not able to provide the necessary explanation to references used in the short time span available. Our next question is from Anton. Please don't make this one about killing Jews.
Why did the non-binary chicken cross the road?
Why did the non-binary chicken cross the road? Now the non-binary animal. A Labour-run London council is facing legal action after installing a set of controversial road crossings in the colours of the transgender pride flag. Camden Council installed the blue, pink and white crossings nearly 4 years ago in Bloomsbury in a bid to help celebrate transgender awareness and to act as a reminder of the rich LGBT plus history in Camden. But a Camden resident is now threatening to bring a legal challenge to have the 4 crossings at Tavistock Place and Marchmont Street removed or redesigned because she claims it constitutes unlawful political messaging. You live in Camden, don't you?
I do. I'm a Camden resident.
Don't give the area. We don't want a rock or a tree to find out. But have you seen these? Giant
crossings? Rainbow crossings.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
not the rainbow crossings. It's in the transgender colours. Sort of pink
Toothpastey.
The
Colgate crossings.
The Colgate. I don't know. It's ideology, isn't it?
Well, this is it.
And you don't have to agree with ideology, but I don't know if it should be there. It's political.
But should it be promoted?
I'm into free speech, so people can do it, but I can react to it, if you know what I mean.
So do you think that if
I don't believe it, I don't want to ban it.
If Camden puts up the does a suffragettes colour...
is there a suffragette colour?
Yes.
Yeah?
Purple and...
Purple
in the olden days, it was all black and white, so that's just a zebra crossing. This is one of those stories which, again, is up there in the kind of, it's so stupid, why would you bother?
Right.
Like, the money that they spend on a crossing to achieve what? I don't think anyone is walking down the road thinking, do you know what, I've got absolutely no respect for trans rights. I just need to cross the road. And they just see the foreign...
Most of us aren't even thinking
about it.
Also,
why are you stepping on the flag or the colours? Surely that would show a sign of disrespect.
Yeah.
There's another issue, which is it costs about £10,000 to put them in.
Right.
It also is bad for people who have issues with colours and blind people, I believe.
Yeah, people with dementia.
It's not... If it can't... I mean, there's a reason why we do black and white as a zebra crossing. That has been shown to be the most functional way of utilising it.
I thought it was about the race issue. I thought that's what they were trying to sort out with the zebra crossings.
Oh, really? OK, you think it was just like a sort of everybody, let's just get along.
Yeah.
Okay.
£10,000 is a disgusting amount of money for that.
To show that ideology?
I can think of a way to spend £10,000 in a much more beneficial way for the community, you know? I know people using food banks in my community, so that is disgusting.
Yeah, they could do a food bank, but if they wanted to get the sort of trans ideology, they could just make it marshmallows.
Ideology, schmideology.
White, purple marshmallows.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And I had an answer to your question about the chicken crossing the road. So it was to explore the other side.
Oh, of its personality. So a spokesman for Camden Council confirmed they have rejected the legal letters. These crossings are a visual statement to help celebrate transgender awareness and act as a reminder of the rich LGBTQ+ history and daily life in the Bloomsbury area and across Camden.
Why don't they do the history of, like, mums and dads pushing, families pushing prams around, like, rather than everything being about sexuality? What about the actual people of Camden?
It's already that school sign that is a parent holding a kid's hand, though. We've got the school signs already. The elderly.
But there's no sort of festival of
parenting.
or the hard graft. You know, why is it always...
I should point out that Miriam has just come from her very young baby.
but, you know...
Fair enough, you're in it. No, I agree with you, absolutely. Look, our next question is from Sean.
Should representation be an awards category?
Yeah, should representation be an award category? So, Smoogie Queens, the BBC sitcom about drag queens that secured just 30,000 viewers for its second episode, has been named Best Comedy at the Broadcast Digital Awards. The judges, 11 of which work for the BBC, said that the sitcom ticked the box of representation. Now, sure, you're a big fan of this comedy.
No, I'm not a big fan.
OK.
But I have worked in television for many years and I do know the way things work. And certainly having worked on many famous comedy shows in the past and worked with them, I can safely say that shows like this don't represent what I would class as something that should be for awards, but that's just my opinion. After all, this is free speech nation, so I'm giving my opinion on that one. But certainly, awards category should be based on merit and nothing else.
Yes, but it seems exactly... I mean, that's exactly it. It should be merit. But what they're utilising to quantify merit is representation. So they're sort of going, oh, well, it's filmed outside of a major city. It's got a full spectrum of LGBTQ+ people in it. So that's what it's good at. As opposed to this comedy, giving it best comedy, which you would think is, let's just give it to the funniest, yeah.
But then, I disagree with awards in general. They're absolutely pointless. It's people who've
That's because you've never won one.
Well, no, that's true. 5-metre swimming award was technically an award, but other than that, no. No, it's basically people patting themselves on the back when they've already achieved the goal. Like, so many people want to work in telly or in films or whatever, and you make it, and then, oh, aren't we really great? And it's never worthwhile, because it's never about the most popular, because that would just be, what are the ratings? So you have to do this other system where you pat yourselves on the back for stupid reasons.
Well, but it seems like they've gone for the most unpopular, or an extremely unpopular show. I mean, seeing the category, I've got to be honest, I didn't know most of the comedy. That's terrible. As well, that's sort of a larger discussion on the state of comedy in this country.
It's quite superficial.
There was Trying, which I've seen once or twice, which was pretty good. But to give it to this comedy, I would say it's surely... I mean, I watched one episode. It's just not funny.
It's not funny, so it's not about content then. It's just superficial. It's what things look like. It's like the Benetton advert of generation
of
comedy. It's like, oh look, everyone looks, you know.
But they were
I'm
so
bored of it.
fixated.
There's nothing beneath the surface of it. It's empty.
It's all surface.
It's all surface. Yeah, it's been going this way for a long time, you know.
Yeah, well, that's it. The death of comedy on the BBC.
Content.
Yeah, and I like to think I played a role in the death of the comedy on the BBC.
Our final question's from Anton.
Do you like your art to remind you of a good night out?
Do you like your art to remind you of a good night out? Don't want to ask what a good night out means for you there, Anton. This is a provocative pink sculpture erected in one of New York City's busiest destinations. It is enraging locals over its grotesque look and not so subtle features. The 10-foot-tall foot fountain, which is slated to grace Manhattan's Highline Park through May 2026, is composed of a foot at its base with a flesh colour... Oh, there it is. Coloured column extending upward in all its phallic glory.
Oh, God.
Now, not only that, I believe if you move some pedals, water will come out of the top.
I bet it does.
As well. So... oh, hello, there we go. Now, let us go to our resident comedian / artist. Miriam, you're an actual artist.
I'm
as
an
well.
actual artist.
You're an actual artist. What do you think of that? I mean, of course, we can't judge what artists...
It reminds me of when I used to go out clubbing and my feet would hurt, you know, if you'd been in heels for too long.
And then your foot turned into a big willy.
Your foot turns into a big willy and you can't get home. And you're kind of like, you're walking home in the heels and you're like, you know what, sod it, I'll take them off. You take off the heels and then your feet look like that.
What?
You're sort of all splayed.
Please, Miriam, do me a favour.
That was a long time ago. I
don't take your shoes off live on air. Because Ofcom will definitely come down on us.
It just reminds me of my youth, that's all.
That's what it is.
I'm not sure what my punchline would be, but it would include the phrase balls of your feet. And somehow that would fit both, wouldn't it? A lot of this is just people being scared of the old phallic things. In the story, it says, "Oh, it's phallic," as if that's a bad thing. Hey, do you know what? Penises happen.
True.
Right there. They're just natural. They're just Mother Nature.
They do happen, but they also do they have to sort of include jettison, foot on the end, plus sort of sprouting liquid. That's just a little bit too far for me.
It's art. I wouldn't buy one for my front room. But it's up to you what you want to decorate with your art. I mean, it's not my...
How do you feel about walking around with pushing your kids down the street in a pram? We're going to go some smart kids.
Explain what that is. Yeah. That's genetic modification right there. That's...
You can have a few cats playing with it.
Yeah, does that inspire you at all, your next piece of art?
My next piece of art, it does inspire me because it's in my next book.
Oh, OK, fair enough. Well, look, next on Free Speech Nation, appropriately, we are joined by another artist who claims that she was banned from her own art show because of her gender-critical views. Don't go anywhere. She's not the artist of the Big Foot Willy. Well, maybe she is. That'll be fun.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Front page of the Times today says exercise proves the best therapy for keeping cancer at bay. Let's get the views of Tim Vincent.
It's quite an exciting trial, this. There's new findings every single day, isn't there? But I think this has been done over many years by a lot of people. And it actually says, what you'd assume would be the case is that if you exercise, then it keeps your health in a better condition and will keep cancer from returning measurably, notably, to I think it's 30-something%. And this is on people that have had cancer and then are encouraged to exercise. And there's many doctors over the years have said, not quite sure. If you feel like you can exercise, then exercise. They're now saying you should exercise as soon as you feel good enough.
This
will make a big difference.
This makes me feel awful because I would have been pro-exercise, except I can't move. I'm in a wheelchair now, and I can't put on the right trainers, I can't change, I can't go to the showers, I can't do things. It's just, I can't stand up. So there are a lot of people who are incapable of exercising, and therefore, rightly so, we see their increase of cancer growing.
Absolutely, and that's an issue that everybody's going to face, and you're obviously in a really difficult position. Any exercise, I think, is going to help, especially for these people that have had cancer once and can get out there. And it's very isolating as well, exercising.
So you're actually saying, if you're in redemption from cancer or whatever, you could keep it at bay by exercising.
It's actually better than a pill.
Yeah.
The results are actually better than a pill.
I think it's 36%, isn't it, for exercise?
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. A gender-critical artist, Victoria Culp, is taking legal action against Watford Borough Council, claiming she was barred from her own exhibition at the Watford Museum after voicing her belief that transitioning is harmful to children. Culp alleged that a council employee falsely claimed there was a police investigation into her comments, citing a fabricated hate crime and inventing a crime number to justify restricting her access. Court documents confirm no police record exists, yet the council treated her like a criminal for months, eventually terminating her contract. A legal team accuses the council of collusion and lies to intimidate her, and I'm absolutely delighted that Victoria is joining me now. Victoria, and welcome to the show. I was just realising, as I was explaining all of that maybe I should just let you say it.
It's all right. It sounded good. It sounded good in feedback, so it's... Yeah.
OK, fine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is an incredible story. You're an artist, and I don't know if you saw the last section, but I'm assuming it's not big...
No, I didn't like that.
Didn't like that.
No,
fair enough.
not my kind of stuff. Yeah.
But you were banned from your own exhibition, so what happened?
So I actually funded the exhibition myself.
Wow.
I just wanted to make this piece called Legacy, and I was sort of looking at what we were cultivating because I have children, and I was thinking what kind of inheritance we pass on to them. And I was thinking about sort of the environmental sort of aim of that, but also sort of societally. And but it was really mild. I made a tree coming out of an old bit of furniture, and I had a conversation with someone whilst I was making a cup of tea, and I casually asked how the family were, and I got a massive over-disclosure about her child's history of mental illness and all these problems, and that they were trying to go to the Tavistock to be part of the gender identity service. And this was like over 2 years ago. But I knew the cash report was happening. I'd heard that there was whistleblowers. I knew what was going on with Kira Bell. I was really concerned. And she wanted me to go along with this. And at first I said, well, it's your family. And then she pushed and she was like, well, I'm so glad you really like this idea. And I thought, no, I never said that. And so I just said, look, because of my faith, because I'm a Christian, and I said, and because of my training and my background, because I've done a lot of work with children and young people, I said, I can't support that. And then she went on to try and explain why this was a really great idea. And I gave a counter-argument, and which I basically said, like, you know, the human brain is still developing until you're about 24, 25 years old. That's the latest neuroscience. And at the time, there was this big debate publicly, and I remember hearing it on, I think it was like Jeremy Vine or something on the radio, where they were talking about whether teenagers should be driving because they can't focus and they can't make sort of like decisions at 18.
Let alone making choices going to affect their fertility.
Exactly, forever.
Chopping off body parts.
Exactly. And so I was like, the latest neuroscience is that, you know, your brain is still developing until you're 24, 25, so you can't assess risk. And I said, so as adults, we need to be...
And at the time, Tavistock was basically they had a saying, transing away the gay.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They were transing kids. They were pushing, they were doing affirmative...
Yes, girls were turning up, and just because they weren't playing with a doll, they were shoving them along a trans-affirming, you know, they were saying, well, you're gender exploring.
Here's some hormones, here's some puberty blockers.
Yeah, without any kind of restraint. And I think that's morally corrupt, that's morally bankrupt. And I think my issue is with people in academia, people sort of working in these places of influence that are bamboozling really confused parents who don't know what's happening to their children.
Well, I think this is the interesting thing, actually, is that she had probably picked up some of this stuff and was kind of just wanting this kind of affirmation from you, like, wow, you're so brave and amazing. Yeah. And of course, you yourself had looked into this a bit further.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of pushback, and people don't want that. So it sounds like she had a very bad reaction to it, right?
Well, look, she kept talking, and I actually made her a cup of tea, and she showed me where all the tea things were. So if you look on the CCTV, she's actually in my space the whole time. And then I gave her this cup of tea, and then I thought we agreed to disagree, and I went upstairs. And I thought it was OK. And then I had to take some work in next day, and when I arrived, within the window of time I was supposed to, I wasn't allowed in. And she said she had an event starting. I was like, oh, well, OK, well, I need to get this last piece in. Ironically, the piece was called Mother and Child. I thought, you can't make this up. But she wouldn't let me in. And then she took it and she said, oh, all right. And then the following day, I had an event where I was sort of representing an organisation called Be Creative, and I was representing Watford Museum. And I was doing some community outreach for them, and I was working at a local college. And that was cancelled. And I thought, well, at first I thought, oh, well, I'm relieved because I'm really tired and I've been doing too many things, working mum. And then I realised, no, there's something more sinister, because within sort of an hour, the museum called me up and said I'd been accused of harassment for things I said about a member of staff's daughter. And it's interesting, they hadn't even sort of gone along with the gender identity, but, you know, they were trying to get their heads around it. And that I had... you know, the police were investigating me, and I needed to please not come in that day while the police investigation was happening.
And this is a lie, right? There was no police involved at all.
Well, I
wouldn't be surprised if there was police.
The woman did contact the police. She got a charity involved called Ask for Clive, who are kind of an activist group who are trying to ban anybody sort of talking about anything that might be considered offensive. No debate, and in public spaces. And you know, they promote like a zero tolerance of any kind of homophobia, transphobia, but that could be construed as, what if you've got Dot and Doris having a chat in a pub and they're on the, I don't know, retirement hour, and Dot is 84 and she's really worried about her grandson who is deciding to change his life, and she says to Doris, I don't know what to do. My grandson now thinks he's a girl. I don't know what to do. Do you think we did anything wrong? Or, you know, she's just having a chat about it, and a third member of staff thinks, oh, I'm offended by that. I'm going to report you to the police for hate crime.
Well, we talked about this interesting with Lord Toby Young earlier about the banter ban and someone being offended by that.
Yeah.
But, of course, so you funded this exhibition, then you're told that you're actually not even allowed to attend it.
No, I'm not allowed to attend it. And then, my work got broken, and I didn't find out because I couldn't market it because I couldn't get in to photograph it. And I found out through someone I asked, can you photograph this for me because I can't get in? And then she was like, what have you done? And I was like, what do you mean, what have I done? And this woman had plastered all over social media that she'd been subjected to this transphobic and homophobic rant. And I was thinking, what planet? Because I wasn't in that conversation. I don't know what she's going on about. And then I got in touch with Christian Concern, who were amazing, because I thought the police were going to turn up at my door and arrest me in front of my children. I was really frightened. And they were really good, actually. They've been advising me, and they've actually been supporting me with legal action, because as this case has gone on, what's transpired is we have emails that and this was supported by a judge, like, in April, where he was very happy with something called a particulars of claim, which is like a list, a legal list of all the things they've done, and there's enough evidence to substantiate that legal list that we're taking action against. So the whole process they've sort of obfuscated. So at first I tried to do a public access request, and this is a council, this is a government body, and they said, oh, we don't have anything. There's nothing with you in any of this. We don't have any emails with you. And this went on for 6 months to a year.
So you've been really dedicated to getting to the bottom of exactly what has happened. Now it's come out. So what is it that happened behind the scenes then? She reported me to the police. Apparently, the police subject access request says that they said, well, it's free speech, which is amazing, because wow. At the current time, I know. So they said, well, we can't arrest her, and case sort of, closed. But then she went on with a crime reference number, and she told her bosses and all her peers that I was still being investigated. Wow. And she also then tried to get me done for safeguarding, so that I could never work with children or young people or old people again. Now, does this person still work for the council?
No, but I don't... through someone else, I know she's got another job somewhere else, but I don't know that she was
It just shows you the damage that certain individuals, if you don't align with their ideology...
Oh, absolutely. And then not only that, like, I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get a job in the arts. The arts is very funded towards sort of leftist, like a leftist agenda. And, because we'd gone to press to sort of raise the profile of Christian Concern as a charity and my case, because I thought this is something for anybody. Because if you're in the office and you're having a cup of tea and you say, I'm not sure about that makes me feel uncomfortable, and somebody takes offence and they report you for hate crime, they are judge, juror and prosecutor, and you don't stand a chance. And the police are filing these non-crime hate incidents without you even knowing. And then if you are applying for work and there's a safeguarding issue and you have to do something like a DBS check, which you have to do if you work in anything with academia, any young people, any vulnerable people in the charity sector, you're kind of screwed. You know, these people aren't finding out until they're going for interview or until they're trying to take on the next stage of your life. So basically, I couldn't get any work within the sector, and even people that I'd worked for before, I was really surprised I didn't get even shortlisted for an interview. Yeah, so it was really devastating, and I had to sort of set up a gardening business. I was like, well, you can't. No one's. What can I do, you know? And I just realigned myself. I went back into training as a counsellor again. So, yeah.
It's incredible the impact that people can have on our lives if we don't go along with what they want us to say about it. And I'm sorry that it's obviously happened to you, but thank you for coming and sharing your story, Victoria. Representatives of Watford Borough Council said our client robustly denies she claims made by Miss Cuff and does not accept the allegations made by Miss Cuff in the claim. Next on Free Speech Nation, I am joined by Kate Harris from the LGBT Alliance to discuss an extraordinary story that the media have studiously ignored. Well, we're not going to ignore it at all. See you in 2 minutes.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The fresh northwesterly winds that are currently across the UK are also beginning to spread into other areas of Western Europe and helping to ease the heat wave that they've had here recently. Still, though, there are plenty of heavy showers and thunderstorms here, particularly across parts of Iberia, the Alps and towards the Balkans. The heat, though, is getting squeezed towards eastern areas of continental Europe, and so here temperatures are still going to be notably above average as we head over the next few days, but with some sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Next week promises more sunshine and fewer showers. We've had some quite heavy ones around during today. They will tend to be easing off as we head throughout this evening and overnight, but some further spells of rain are very likely for parts of Wales and England as we do head into the early hours of Monday morning. Some clearer spells developing for areas further towards the north, and that could lead to a relatively fresh night. Temperatures in towns and cities around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius, but single figures is likely in some rural areas. Do watch out for a few of those lingering heavy showers just first thing on Monday morning, particularly across the far southeast of England, and we could also see a few of them drifting in for North Wales, parts of Merseyside and Cheshire as well. But generally the theme is that things will be turning drier. Quite a lot of sunshine around for Northern Ireland and Scotland to kick off Monday morning. A fairly pleasant start here, still with a brisk breeze in place, so a fresh morning nonetheless, but that sunshine should become a bit more prevalent across many areas as we do move throughout the day. Those showers easing off, and there will be a lot of dry, fine weather around for many of us. Temperatures are expected to be around average for the time of year. We'll likely see mid to high teens across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, where we'll be closer towards 23 degrees Celsius across the far south of England. But that breeze that is in place may just make it feel a touch cooler. As we move into Tuesday, high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic, but there are still a few fronts just pushing their way into the far northwest of Scotland. So we could see cloud building for Northern Ireland and the Outer Hebrides with a few spots of rain later on in the day. A few showers also just skirting the far east of England, but generally there will be a lot of sunshine to be had, and generally with lighter winds as well, it should be feeling pretty pleasant. That sunshine looks to become increasingly widespread as we head throughout the week, and those temperatures are set to climb close towards 30 degrees Celsius for some of us. Bye-bye.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Stephen Ireland, founder of Pride in Surrey, has been jailed for the rape and abuse of a 12-year-old boy, crimes that many believe could have been prevented. Concern about Ireland's conduct were raised as early as 2021, including warnings about his self-appointed role as a safeguarding lead, his relationship with an 18-year-old boy, actually just an 18-year-old, and him sending sexually explicit material at Pride events. Whistleblowers who tried to raise the alarm were met with resistance, bans and legal threats. One of those on the wrong end of Ireland's threats was the LGB Alliance. When, in 2021, Ireland wrote a furious letter to a charity commission saying that the LGBT Alliance should not have charitable status and was a very dangerous organisation. Turns out that he was a very dangerous individual. To discuss this difficult story is Kate Harris from the LGBT Alliance. Welcome to the show, Kate. The whole story is, of course, horrible. But when you read about how that there were people, whistleblowers, raising concerns years before this came to light. Can you just tell us about that first of all, some of these whistleblowers and their stories?
I can. I've been working with several of them over the last few weeks leading up to the sentencing last Monday. But before we talk about any of that, I just want to take a moment to think about the courage it took for the 12-year-old boy who was raped, who was given crystal meth, who was abused, whose trust was destroyed by Stephen Ireland. He had the courage not only to speak to his teacher, but to go to the police. And I think this case raises so many horror stories. But at the heart of it is this one boy we know about, but we suspect there may be many others. But I really think he deserves a huge amount of credit for the courage and the guts that took, which ended up in this evil man being sentenced to 30 years and his sidekick, David Sutton, to 4.5 years. So let's never forget that that was a real kid who was involved in this. And secondly, I want to thank the Surrey Police under Chief Constable Tim DeMeyer, who saw this difficult case through. And in addition, a group called Women of Surrey, who became a kind of citizen reporting group and sat through every single day of what was the most appalling evidence, unbelievable evidence, the things that are now coming out in public, you literally would not be able to make up. These are the things that the worst possible nightmares are made of. And this was the life of Stephen Ireland and of David Sutton. So thank you to those women who put themselves through that reporting. In terms of his attack on LGBT Alliance, it's pathetic. It is so unimportant compared to everything else. We know he's also attacked J.K. Rowling. We know he set up an entire campaign to say that Lisa Townsend was not a suitable police and crimes commissioner, and how he had a much better and closer relationship with Surrey Police, implying all the time that relationship enabled him to say that a police and crime commissioner who disagreed with his points of view should be removed from post. So what we've got here is an almost classic example of a brilliant predator taking advantage and almost playing out the role of what successful predators do. They take an organisation on side. He did it with the Surrey County Council, who funded him over the years for £140,000 of taxpayers' money. He did it with Surrey Police. He did it with Guildford Borough Council, with Runnymede Borough Council, with Surrey Heath. And he really has given the police and the public an absolute masterclass in how to deceive and how to engage with children so that he can fulfill his darkest fantasies. And he succeeded.
Well, as you say, this follows a very well-trodden model of people like Jimmy Savile using charities, using public institutions, hiding within them, seeking legitimacy through them. The thing is, something like Jimmy Savile, and we've seen these examples repeatedly. We've seen them in all walks of life. Yet, strangely, within this sphere of the LGBTQ plus community, where's the safeguarding there?
Well, I think this should be it should be a turning point. The fact that the BBC hasn't reported at all, even though they were happy to report on Surrey Pride over
I think
the
they
years.
did, or the local state, Surrey, BBC Surrey,
I thought they were busy interviewing a drag queen at the time. However,
yeah. But one tiny thing compared to this is a big story.
This is a huge story, and what it says is there are a lot of parallels to be drawn with the rape grooming gang scandal. In the same way that those Pakistani Muslim men had a magical ability to get away with their crimes over and over and over again. Stephen Ireland saw the opportunity, and the opportunity that you and I have discussed before is that little plus, LGBTQIA+. And one of the whistleblowers, Marian Harding, who was actually originally a friend of Stephen Ireland, had an argument with him and said, Stephen, you know, what is all this? You're now talking about polyamory. And what is it next? Is it going to be paedophilia? At which point he threw her out of the room, slammed the door, and that was the end of it. But she was one of the main whistleblowers to Joanna Killian, Chief Executive Officer of Surrey County Council, who she wrote to in 2021. So what we need to do is to explain there is a huge difference between an organisation which calls itself LGB. For example, LGB Alliance is about adults who are lesbian, gays and bisexuals. We care deeply about what's happening to young people today because we think they're being completely misled by those people who tell young kids, many of them likely to grow up gay or lesbian, that they could be born in the wrong body, and wouldn't it be a good idea to have healthy body parts removed? So safeguarding is at the heart of what we do, and it's at the heart of our own helpline. For example, in our helpline, we have communication online only. We never have one person
I
only.
believe he was the safeguarding head, and he had a telephone, right? Like a helpline a mobile phone that he wouldn't give to anybody else.
He set up his own helpline, which was called You Are Not Alone. It was one telephone, one mobile, and best practice is that the head of any organisation cannot be the safeguarding lead. That is best practice. It's strange that Mermaids, in its advert today for its new chief executive, said that the chief exec would be head of safeguarding. So that's another thing to look out for. But Stephen would not relinquish the phone. Marian Harding again, who was quoted in Jill Foster's excellent article in The Telegraph, told us that she offered. She was DBS checked. She had training. She had experience. He had none of those things. He would not let go of that phone. So God knows how many other children may have been texted to and then talked to.
Vulnerable children.
Yeah. And one of the things that we've suggested, and we will continue to do this, because what I'd like to talk to you about in a few minutes is, what do we do about this? One thing is clearly Surrey County Council safeguarding has made a string of mistakes, not least in 2019, saying there's nothing to see here, when a member of the public wrote in about Stephen Ireland holding a dog lead with a girl who turned out to be 17 on the end of the lead, kneeling down beside him in fetish gear, pup gear, and he was celebrating International Fetish Day.
And little kids were coming by.
And the person at the Surrey Safeguarding, nothing to see here. Nothing. Now, what's happened here is, and may I have some of my lovely water?
Yes, of course, yeah.
What's happened to Surrey Pride is the worst thing that anyone could imagine. If you run an organisation, the worst thing that can happen is that one of your key members of staff, in fact, your leader, turns out to be a paedophile. Now, nobody in Surrey, in Pride in Surrey itself, in Surrey County Council, in BBC Surrey, in Surrey Police, nobody seems to be saying, oh my God, what has just happened? And what I fear is that because Stephen Ireland was he founded Pride in Surrey.
They're trying to pretend that he didn't, by the way.
The statements from Pride in Surrey don't give me any confidence post-conviction and post-sentencing. 2 volunteers have been convicted. Wrong. This was Stephen Ireland's baby. Own it. And then look at your organisation and say, oh my God, what has just happened? And my fear, and these are the questions that must be asked, and my fear is that nothing has changed because pre the conviction, there were 5 directors. And I'm sorry, but I'll just run through the names. There's Stephen Ireland and David Sutton, who were convicted and are now jailed, those 2. Then there was Charlie Watts, who had been engaged to Stephen Ireland. And then there was Craig Spencer, who I don't know very much about. And then there is the chap who is now head of safeguarding, who's 22 years old. And he has taken over this phone, and he was in a throuple. And a throuple, for anybody who doesn't know, is a sexual relationship between 3 men with David Sutton and Stephen Ireland, and is now in a couple with the leader, Charlie Watts. So this is a very incestuous team. Before the convictions, the 5 of them were sitting around the Pride table making policy. Now there are 3, 2 are in jail, no other changes. No women, no new safeguarding figures brought in. It's the same
Still
people.
getting money from the council,
Yes.
still putting on Pride events.
Yes, and still mainly encouraging people to come to them for fun events at what they call the Pride Hub in Egham. Now, Stephen Ireland used to say, there will be sweeties, come to Pride Hub in Egham. And that suggests to me that they're trying to, and everything is family friendly. So I think what I'd be very, very clear to councillors and anybody involved in public services in Surrey is, if something says it's inclusive, it's family friendly, or it's LGBTIA plus, be wary. Because this is happening around the country. This is not just Surrey.
I think the point is, be wary for everything. Like, no ideology, no institution should get a free pass. And it feels like that's, unfortunately, what has happened here that has partly led to this tragedy.
Yeah.
And it just means that just like the BBC, just like the church, just like... So, you know, we have safeguarding for a reason. Yet for some reason, safeguarding here just went out of the window, and we saw the terrible price that was paid. And arguably, it went out the window because, golly gosh, you can't challenge this ideology.
You'll be a transphobe.
Yeah, and that's the fear. I should say Terence Herbert, the Chief Executive of Surrey County Council, says the council is reviewing any interactions regarding Stephen Ireland and Pride in Surrey during his time at the organisation. We are awaiting conclusions of that review. While we wholeheartedly support the LGBTQ+ community in Surrey, there is no funding currently committed to sponsoring Pride in Surrey. And in the statement, Pride in Surrey says concerns were raised about Stephen Ireland that were unrelated to charges against him. These concerns were investigated and, when necessary, reported to appropriate authorities. The concerns were investigated in line with our safeguarding policy. Due to the importance of confidentiality in safeguarding procedures, we cannot comment publicly about specific details relating to safeguarding concerns. This is to ensure people can raise concerns with the assurance that they are heard in confidence. As per a statement released in March in relation to the verdicts regarding Mr. Ireland and Mr. Sutton, we express solidarity with and give our heartfelt thoughts to the victims and families. We utterly condemn the crimes of both individuals. Kate Harris, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about this terrible situation, and hopefully something will be done and this kind of thing can not happen again.
I think everybody who lives in Surrey should be writing to their councillors. We certainly will be.
Okay. Next on Free Speech Nation, it's time of weekend. Me and my panel will be reacting to this week's social sensation. See you in a couple of minutes.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, in the past few minutes, Meghan Markle has paid a sweet tribute to Princess Lilibet as she turns 4 today. It comes just a day after the Duchess of Sussex said she'd love to go into business with her daughter in the future.
Well, that's all it is, another money-making effort there. That's to make up for nobody buying her jam. I mean, do you really care if you see a picture of her kid or not? You do, that's it.
I'd like to see her face, to be honest.
I don't. Now, back to Diana, of course, who was a real star and style icon and whatever. And one day, I can remember, I complimented her on her outfit that she was wearing, and it was the same colour as the outfit you were wearing yesterday.
Bottle green?
No. RUC green, Royal Ulster Constabulary green. As she pointed out to me, she said, yes, RUC green, what do you think? And then she went into a whole, literally, sob story. She started crying about a bomb explosion there'd been in Northern Ireland or whatever. She was very, very close, very connected with all of that. But, yeah, so...
And knowledgeable as well, by the sound of things,
She was very knowledgeable, yeah. And then she went on to talk about William and Harry going to school and how that upset her, and they went to boarding school or whatever it is. So we talked about all those things. And I forgot why I was going to tell you that story, but there was some reason. But she was... it was the same colour as what you were wearing yesterday, anyway, the green.
And she was so lovely by the sounds of things.
She was film star status. I mean, you just saw her in a room and you would go...
Wow.
She's special, yeah, she's special.
And I think whoever that was speaking in that report there saying, one of the designers, I think it was the designer of the wedding dress, saying it was just clothes or just a dress, but then Diana wore it and then it was something special. And it became part of history. And that's exactly what happened.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for social sensations. I think the last section was too important for us to have cut early, but I think it was worth it. So I just want to say, finally, thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. I want to say thank you to my panel, Miriam, Elia, and Steve and Alan, and to all of my brilliant guests this evening. If you want to join us live in the studio, be part of our wonderful audience, you can. Please go to gbnews.com/tickets. Stay tuned for the brilliant Alex Armstrong stepping in for Ben Leo tonight. That is next. Thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation, and we will see you next week. Take care. Bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Next week promises more sunshine and fewer showers. We've had some quite heavy ones around during today. They will tend to be easing off as we head throughout this evening and overnight, but some further spells of rain are very likely for parts of Wales and England as we do head into the early hours of Monday morning. Some clearer spells developing for areas further towards the north, and that could lead to a relatively fresh night. Temperatures in towns and cities around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius, but single figures is likely in some rural areas. Do watch out for a few of those lingering heavy showers just first thing on Monday morning, particularly across the far southeast of England. And we could also see a few of them drifting in for North Wales, parts of Merseyside and Cheshire as well. But generally, the theme is that things will be turning drier. Quite a lot of sunshine around for Northern Ireland and Scotland to kick off Monday morning. A fairly pleasant start here, still with a brisk breeze in place, so a fresh morning nonetheless. But that sunshine should become a bit more prevalent across many areas as we do move throughout the day. Those showers easing off, and there will be a lot of dry, fine weather around for many of us. Temperatures are expected to be around average for the time of year. We'll likely see mid to high teens across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, where we'll be closer towards 23 degrees Celsius across the far south of England. But that breeze that is in place may just make it feel a touch cooler. As we move into Tuesday, high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic, but there are still a few fronts just pushing their way into the far northwest of Scotland. So we could see cloud building for Northern Ireland and the Outer Hebrides with a few spots of rain later on in the day. A few showers also just skirting the far east of England, but generally there will be a lot of sunshine to be had, and generally with lighter winds as well, it should be feeling pretty pleasant. That sunshine looks to become increasingly widespread as we head throughout the week, and those temperatures are set to climb close towards 30 degrees Celsius for some of us. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have